Happy birthday, NORPA. Wonderful 20 years, and I must say I'm so thrilled that the company is doing so well. I remember with great fondness those early days when we started out with Lilies of the Paddock, touring through the region, and then of course the tour of the Cars That Ate Paris, which I directed, adapted from Peter Weir's film, that we took on the road to the Festival of Perth, and I think 25 local people came on that tour, and then to Adelaide. Then of course we followed that with conversations at the Ryan Hotel and Faces in the Street, and then The Mercenary, which I enjoyed singing very much, which we commissioned from Paul Grabowski and Yanis Bolotis, and then of course Mr. Barbecue, which was a great deal of fun, that was written by Elena Katz-Chernin and Yanis again. And it was great to do those pieces in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and out on the road through regional Australia, and it was a great time. I'd like to make special mention of Dr. Andrew Binns. Andrew was a great supporter and still is, I know, of the company, and particularly financially and morally he was a wonderful support in some of those times when it was particularly difficult. I also want to thank Roth Wall, who was the chairman through those times as well, and to all of you who supported the company. It was a great time, and I remember it, as I said, with great fondness, and was one of the highlights of my life. So enjoy the party, enjoy your great 20 years, and here's to another 20 years of NORPA.
It's been a very exciting journey, plenty of drama on the stage and off the stage, and I've been privileged to be there throughout that time, and I've got here the original brochure from 1993 of our first season, and you know, it is amazing just what we were doing then and compare it with what we're doing now, but it's been very much an evolutionary journey. And back in those days, one of the amazing shows in 1993 was the Cars That Ate Paris, and that was based on, well, adapted from Peter Weir's film of the same name, and putting it into this performance involved a whole stack of cars up outside the Lismore City Hall, about 4 metres high. It was a very wild show. There was stock cars going up and down Bounty Street to provide a bit of ambience. There was some of our ferals, as we called them, jumping off the roof of the Lismore City Hall. There were fireworks coming out of the gutters of the City Hall. I don't know how we got away with the OH&S, but nevertheless the show went on. It was absolutely amazing and fantastic, and in fact later went on to the Adelaide Fringe Festival and then the Perth Festival, where it was widely acclaimed there.
I came to the Northern Rivers to be the first Vice-Chancellor of Southern Cross University here, but I was involved in that way. I wasn't on the board until 2001, I think it was, perhaps 2002. Having left the university and gone away for a little bit, I came back to Just Right Music in the Northern Rivers, and Lyndon and the various board members encouraged me to join the board. So for the next 10 years, I became very involved. One of the great challenges of being a board member of NORPA, and for a while I was very much involved in ensuring the survival of the company, and small companies, regional companies, even the best one, has to worry about convincing the funding people, which is the local government, the state government, federal government, that what we're doing is relevant and deserves support. And then of course the best support of all is the people who turn up as customers and people who come to the shows. But there have been times, I have to say, where we've really been worried about NORPA continuing to survive. My feeling is that from now on we'll see more recognition of the achievement after 20 years that this can be done. One of the things that happened relatively recently, certainly when I was on the board, was the creation of Electric Lenin, which in a way is a kind of small-scale opera commissioned by Lyndon Terracini, originally written for him to sing in, though in the end he turned out to be so distracted and busy by all his other things around the world and around Australia. But it was a show in a sense instigated by Lyndon, with a couple of stories that he'd found in the Northern Rivers about farmers who did extraordinary things, including being a ham radio operator, and we made our ham radio operator linked with another story about being a socialist, someone who investigated all the activities around the world. But it's also, it was a great time because of involving local production and local values. So after Lyndon, of course, I was involved in the appointment of Julian Louis as the new artistic director and still our leader in carrying the flag forward in what NORPA stands for. And I can certainly remember in those early few years with Julian, the Bloody Bride was a fantastic piece about the Northern Rivers, but involving classical references to Garcia Lorca. And so I think it's terrific to be celebrating 20 years of NORPA.
The regional experiences that I've had in making theatre and travelling and creating work has meant that I've been inspired by communities and probably by the landscape and the culture of Australia and the diversity of Australian culture. And I was invited to apply to this job, and I was almost surprised by the notion. The idea of a venue and or venues and seasons and curating wasn't really anything that I'd had my sights on. But the idea of working in Lismore when I came here, the idea of working inside a regional community was a great challenge, and something that I'd tasted in lots of different parts of Australia, and knew that I had a desire to create theatre and make new theatre in a regional context. The platform in which I inherited the artistic director's role here has meant that it had a unique profile already. It was renowned as curating really adventurous works and taking audiences to new places. And also its works that NORPA had created, like The Flood and The Carzadate Paris, were wild event-style theatre where audiences were immersed in a kind of experience. So I was really drawn to that and inspired by that in turn. Some of my most interesting works in the past in Sydney were also works that were outdoors, that involved lots of people and lots of performers. So I guess I had a natural affinity with this style of, in the history of the company, the style of work that was created. So that's what inspired me to start making work here as well. Exploring the culture of place, which Lyndon Terracini talked about. Works that reflected the character of the area, and I think staying relevant is what's interesting. Staying connected to an audience and a community, and actually bringing the audience along with you on the process of making a show. That's the stamp of NORPA, and that's what makes us quite unique nationally. Railway Wonderland was certainly a show that encapsulated all of that sense of adventure and community and risk. You know, building a seating platform on railway tracks, and watching theatre outside was thrilling to create with a great group of artists. I think that show certainly had the hallmarks of those sorts of productions of the past, and I think the shows of the future, turning up to an iconic site like a disused railway station and seeing a car park alive with pizza and wine flowing, and that sense of almost changing the way we see a place, a site. You know, site-specific work actually changes the way we remember a site. So when I drive past the railway station now, I remember that show, and I think for those who saw the show, they can actually, their memories changed, or that site has a new quality to it. NORPA's really been leading the way nationally as a presenter of work, and also as a creator of work. We're a shining light now nationally as a company that creates really exciting work that's highly relevant. We can bring bigger shows, we can bring great companies, both national and international shows to here. But probably more exciting than that is the shows that we're going to be creating, the way in which we're gathering more and more artists, both local artists and national artists, and inventing theatre that's current, that's about here, about now. It's an exciting time for the company and a place I wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Do you know what that is? I marry a man in Lismo when I'm still in Italy and he's not there.